Billionaire Alpha pretends to fall asleep to test the shy maid. Then he's shocked when he saw her.
Prologue.
She thought cleaning room 1217 would be routine. Just another Tuesday morning at the Regency Grand. Another set of Egyptian cotton sheets to strip, another marble bathroom to scrub until it gleamed like fresh snow. Taylor Lopez had her system down to a science. 6:47 a.m. every single day. Cart stocked with lavender-scented all-purpose cleaner, microfiber cloths folded into perfect squares, and that little bottle of glass polish she special ordered online because the hotel's generic brand left streaks that made her chest feel tight. But when she slid her master key into the lock of room 1217 and pushed open that heavy mahogany door, the smell hit her first. Not the usual mix of stale cologne and room service leftovers. Something metallic. Something wrong. The kind of smell that makes your stomach drop before your brain catches up to explain why. The curtains were drawn. The room sat in gray half-light, shadows stretching across Persian rugs and gilded furniture that cost more than Taylor made in 6 months. She took 3 steps inside, her white sneakers silent on thick carpet, and that's when she saw him. Dominic Ashford. Billionaire tech mogul. Real estate magnate. The man who owned half of Manhattan's skyline and treated people like disposable chess pieces. Sprawled across silk sheets the color of champagne, cold, lifeless, and very, very dead. His eyes were open, staring at nothing. One arm hung off the side of the bed, fingers curled like he'd been reaching for something in those final seconds. And there, blooming across his crisp white undershirt, a dark stain that had soaked through to the mattress beneath him.
Blood.
So much blood. Taylor's cleaning cart slipped from her trembling hands. The bottle of glass polish hit the floor and rolled, slow and accusing, until it bumped against the leg of a chair. She should have screamed, should have run, should have done literally anything except stand there, frozen, her mind trying to process what her eyes were showing her. But Taylor Lopez didn't work like most people. Her brain moved differently, always had. When things got overwhelming, when the world became too loud and too bright and too much, she went quiet.
Still.
Like someone had pressed pause on her entire nervous system. So she just stood there, rocking slightly on her heels, counting the seconds in her head, because counting always helped.
1, 2,
3,
4, 5.
At 7 seconds, hotel security burst through the door. At 12 seconds, someone was shouting her name. At 19 seconds, the police were called. And at 23 seconds, Taylor realized with cold, crystallizing horror that everyone in that room was looking at her like she was the monster. The police said it was murder. Calculated. Brutal. The killer had used a silver letter opener, the kind of ornate, expensive thing that sat on Dominic's desk like a piece of art. Stabbed straight through the heart with surgical precision.
No struggle. No defensive wounds.
Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. The hotel said she did it. Management whispered in corners. Security reviewed footage. Other maids avoided her in the break room like guilt was contagious. Because Taylor was different. Awkward. The weird girl who talked to herself while she worked and couldn't look people in the eye and had a meltdown last month when someone moved her cart to a different storage closet. Different meant dangerous. Different meant guilty. But the worst part? The part that made Taylor's chest feel like it was caving in? The man she'd been falling for, slowly, carefully, like learning to trust solid ground after a lifetime of quicksand, he had secrets that could destroy them both. Jackson Holland wasn't just the quiet dishwasher who saved her the corner seat in the basement cafeteria every morning. Wasn't just the man with kind eyes and careful hands who helped her pick up broken dishes without making her feel small. Jackson Holland was an alpha werewolf with a bounty on his head. A supernatural predator hiding in plain sight, washing plates and bussing tables while hunters tracked his scent across 3 states. He'd been running for years, bleeding himself dry to stay invisible. And the dead billionaire upstairs, Dominic Ashford, with his designer suits and shark smile, he wasn't just some rich guest. He was the hunter who'd been tracking Jackson for 3 years. The man who'd slaughtered Jackson's entire pack when he was 19 years old. The man who collected werewolf pelts like trophies and mounted them in a private study that smelled like death and gun oil. And now he was dead in room 1217. Now Taylor was the prime suspect. And now Jackson had a choice to make: stay hidden and let the woman he loved go to prison for a murder she didn't commit, or step into the light and risk everything. 3 lives colliding. 1 dead body. And a truth so dangerous it could burn their entire world to ash. Before we dive deeper into the story, and trust me, it gets so much more intense, drop a comment right now and let us know where you're watching from. Seriously, we want to see how far this story travels. New York? Miami? Somewhere in between? Type it out. And if you enjoy werewolf stories like this, the kind that grab you by the throat and don't let go, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to Gracie Werewolf Story Bank, turn on the notification bell, and share this with someone who loves a good forbidden romance mixed with murder mystery and supernatural chaos. Because what happens next? It's going to change everything. Chapter 1. Taylor Lopez was invisible. Not literally, but close enough. She could walk through the marble lobby of the Regency Grand at rush hour, pushing her cleaning cart with its squeaky left wheel, and not a single person would look up. Businessmen in $1,000 suits brushed past her like she was air. Socialites in clicking heels talked through her when she asked if they needed fresh towels. Even the concierge, the man who prided himself on remembering every guest's name, couldn't recall hers after 3 years of working the same shift. To them, Taylor was part of the furniture. A shadow in a gray uniform who showed up, scrubbed their messes, and disappeared before they had to acknowledge her existence. And honestly, most days that felt safer. Because being seen meant being judged. Being noticed meant people pointing out all the ways she didn't quite fit. The way her voice came out flat when she was trying to sound friendly. The way she flinched when someone touched her shoulder without warning. The way she had to count things: floor tiles, ceiling lights, the number of steps between the elevator and the supply closet, just to keep the anxiety from crawling up her throat. Taylor was 24 years old, and she'd spent most of her life trying to decode a world that didn't come with an instruction manual. Other people seemed to just know things. How to make small talk. When to laugh at jokes. How to read the microscopic shifts in someone's face that meant they were annoyed or bored or lying. Taylor had to learn all of it the hard way, through trial and error and 1,000 tiny humiliations that left scars nobody could see. Her parents figured that out when she was 7. She remembered the day they left. Not because they told her they were leaving, they didn't. They just dropped her off at her grandmother's house in Queens for what they called a visit and never came back.
No explanation. No goodbye.
Just gone. Her grandmother, Abuela Rosa, never said it out loud, but Taylor understood. Her parents couldn't handle a daughter who had meltdowns in grocery stores when the lights were too bright. A kid who couldn't sit still in church. A little girl who lined up her toys by color and size and sobbed for hours if anyone moved them. Abuela Rosa was different, though. She didn't try to fix Taylor. Didn't tell her to act normal or just try harder. She taught her routines instead. Showed her that the world made more sense when you broke it down into patterns. Cleaning became meditation. Organizing became control. And slowly, carefully, Taylor learned how to survive in a world that wasn't built for brains like hers. When Abuela Rosa died 3 years ago, a stroke, sudden and cruel, Taylor was 19 and completely alone. The Regency Grand hired her 2 weeks later. She lied on the application. Said she had experience she didn't have. References she'd invented. But when the head housekeeper saw how Taylor cleaned the demonstration room during her interview, methodical, precise, not a single streak on the mirror or wrinkle in the duvet, she got the job on the spot. And Taylor poured everything into it. She worked the early shift, 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., because fewer people meant fewer conversations she could mess up. She memorized the preferences of every regular guest. Mrs. Chun in 804 liked her pillows fluffed exactly twice. Mr. Okafor in 1105 wanted his newspapers folded, never stacked. The honeymooners in 623 needed their "Do Not Disturb" sign respected no matter what time checkout was. Taylor took pride in getting it right. in being the one person in the entire hotel who cared about the details everyone else missed. But the other staff? They thought she was bizarre. They mocked the way she arranged miniature shampoo bottles by height on her cart, shortest to tallest, labels facing forward. They rolled their eyes when she hummed the same melody under her breath while folding towels. It was a song Abuela Rosa used to sing. Taylor didn't even realize she was doing it most of the time. The tune just helped, made her hands move in rhythm, made the work feel less overwhelming. 47 towels per shift. Always 47. She counted every single one. Why do you do that? One of the other maids, a woman named Brielle, who wore too much perfume and talked too loud, asked her once in the break room. Taylor looked up from her lunch. Do what? The counting thing. The humming. All of it. It's weird. Taylor's chest tightened. Her fingers found the edge of her paper napkin and started folding it into smaller and smaller squares. A stim. A way to keep her hands busy when her brain was screaming. It helps me focus, she said quietly. Brielle laughed. Not mean, exactly. But not kind either. Girl, you need to loosen up. Live a little. You act like you're 50 years old. Taylor didn't respond. She finished folding her napkin into a tiny, perfect rectangle and excused herself to the bathroom, where she locked herself in a stall and cried for 6 minutes before washing her face and going back to work. That was the thing about being invisible. Sometimes it hurt more when people finally did see you and hated what they found. But 6 months ago, something changed. It was a Thursday. Taylor remembered because Thursdays were turkey sandwich day in the staff cafeteria, and she always ate her turkey sandwiches with exactly 3 pickles on the side. She'd just grabbed her tray and was heading toward her usual table in the far corner, the one nobody else wanted because it was next to the loud ice machine, when her shoe caught on something. She didn't even see what. 1 second she was walking. The next she was falling. Her tray went airborne. Dishes crashed. Her turkey sandwich hit the linoleum floor with a wet slap. Pickles rolled in 3 different directions. The cafeteria went silent. Then the laughter started. Not from everyone, but enough. Enough that Taylor felt her face burn hot. Enough that her hands started shaking as she dropped to her knees and started grabbing at broken ceramic pieces with clumsy fingers. Oh my God, Taylor, are you okay? Someone said, but they were already walking past her. She wasn't okay. She was spiraling. Her breath came too fast. Her vision tunneled. She needed to clean this up. Needed to fix it. Needed to disappear before anyone saw her cry. And then, someone knelt beside her. No words.
No fuss.
Just a presence. She looked up. A man. Late 20s, maybe. Dark hair that curled slightly at the ends. Warm brown eyes that didn't look at her like she was a mess to be cleaned up. Hands that were rough and calloused, the kind that came from years of hard work. He picked up the larger pieces of broken plate and stacked them carefully on what was left of her tray. Then he grabbed a handful of napkins and started soaking up the spilled water. You don't have to, Taylor started, but her voice cracked. He glanced at her, gave the smallest shake of his head. Not dismissive. Just gentle. Like he was saying it's okay, without making her talk when talking felt impossible. They cleaned up the mess together in silence. When it was done, he stood and offered her his hand. She hesitated. Touch was hard for her. Always had been. But something about the way he waited, patient and unhurried, made her take it. His hand was warm. Steady. He helped her up, made sure she was balanced, then walked back to the dish pit without a word. Taylor stood there, heart pounding, wondering what the hell just happened. She found out his name 2 days later when she worked up the courage to ask one of the kitchen staff.
Jackson Holland.
Dishwasher. Quiet guy. Kept to himself. Nobody really knew much about him except that he worked brutal hours and never complained. After that, something unspoken shifted between them. Taylor started taking her breaks in the basement kitchen instead of the break room upstairs. Not because she planned it, but because the basement was quieter, calmer. And Jackson was always there, wiping down counters or stacking plates with the same methodical care she recognized in herself. He never made a big deal of it, but he started saving her the corner seat, the one by the window that overlooked the alley, where the noise of the city felt farther away. She'd sit. He'd sit 3 seats down. They wouldn't talk, just existed in the same space. Then one morning, she noticed he needed napkins. He was eating something messy, looked like a breakfast burrito leaking scrambled eggs, and he kept wiping his hands on his jeans because there were no napkins left at the dispenser. The next day, Taylor brought extras. 4 of them. She didn't say anything, just set them on the counter between them, and went back to her tea. Jackson looked at the napkins. Then at her. He smiled. Not big.
Not showy.
Just a small, real smile that made his eyes crinkle at the corners. Thanks, he said.
His voice was low.
A little rough, like he didn't use it much. You always need 4, Taylor said before she could stop herself. He blinked.
Idag.
Her face heated. I noticed. You use exactly 4. Every time. She braced herself for the laughter, the weird looks, the judgment. But Jackson just nodded slowly, like she'd said the most normal thing in the world. You're right, he said. Never thought about it.
But yeah.
4. And that was it. From then on, Taylor brought 4 napkins. Jackson saved her seat. They ate breakfast in comfortable silence, and for the first time in years, Taylor felt like maybe, just maybe, she wasn't completely alone. But what Taylor didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that Jackson wasn't just being kind. He was watching her, not in a creepy way, not the way men sometimes watched women when they thought no one was looking. Jackson was watching her because he could smell something on her. Something old. Something that didn't make sense. Werewolves had senses humans couldn't fathom. They could hear a heartbeat from 30 feet away, track a scent through rain and exhaust fumes. And every person had a scent, a unique signature that told Jackson things about them whether he wanted to know or not. Fear smelled like copper and sweat. Lies smelled like sour milk. But Taylor? Taylor smelled like earth after rain, like cedar smoke and wild herbs. Like something ancient and powerful that had no business being on a human woman in a gray maid's uniform. It terrified him, because Jackson had only smelled that scent once before in his life. On his grandmother, the Pax healer. A woman who could feel death coming before it arrived and talk to the moon like it talked back. His grandmother had been magic, and somehow impossibly, so was Taylor. Chapter 2. Dominic Ashford didn't check into room 1217 for the view. He checked in to kill someone. The reservation came through on a Wednesday afternoon, 2 weeks before Taylor would find his body. Executive suite. Corner room. 17th floor with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. The kind of accommodations that cost more per night than most people made in a month. The front desk staff fell over themselves to accommodate him. Dominic Ashford was the kind of guest hotels dreamed about. Wealthy, powerful, the type of man whose name opened doors and closed deals. Forbes had just named him one of the 50 most influential tech moguls in America. His company developed AI security systems for governments and corporations. He had homes in 6 countries and a private jet with his initials embossed on the leather seats. But none of that was why he was here. Dominic Ashford was a hunter. Not the kind who wore orange vests and shot deer on weekends. The kind whose family had spent 5 generations tracking, trapping, and exterminating creatures most people didn't believe existed. Werewolves. His great-great-grandfather started the tradition in the mountains of Bavaria in 1847. Built a reputation on pelts and proof that monsters walked among men. The Ashford family became specialists, consulted by governments, funded by private collectors, feared by every supernatural creature with enough sense to know their name. Dominic grew up on stories of the hunt. His father showed him his first werewolf corpse when he was 9 years old. Made him touch the fur, still warm. Made him understand that these things weren't human. They were animals. Predators. Abominations that needed to be put down before they hurt innocent people. By the time Dominic was 16, he'd made his first kill. By 25, he'd wiped out an entire pack in Oregon. And now, at 46, he was closing in on his white whale.
Jackson Holland.
The rogue alpha who'd been slipping through his fingers for 3 years. The wolf who'd killed 2 of Dominic's hired trackers and disappeared into the human world like smoke. Dominic's sources. And he had sources everywhere, from corrupt immigration officials to hackers who could pull employment records from any database, had finally pinpointed Jackson's location. The Regency Grand Hotel. Working in the kitchen. Hiding in plain sight among the invisible staff that rich people never looked at twice. It was almost poetic. So Dominic booked the suite. Brought his wife Ariana because a couple looked less suspicious than a man traveling alone. And he waited.
Watched. Planned.
He'd learned patience over the years. Rushing a kill led to mistakes. Mistakes led to exposure. And exposure was the one thing the Ashford family couldn't afford. The world wasn't ready to know that werewolves were real. That they walked the streets, held jobs, pretended to be human. So Dominic would take his time. Observe Jackson's patterns. Find the perfect moment when the wolf was alone and vulnerable. And then he'd put a silver bullet through his skull and mount another trophy in his private study. But first he needed to understand the terrain, which meant paying attention to the staff. The people who moved through the hotel like ghosts. The ones who saw everything and said nothing. That's how he noticed Taylor. She was assigned to his floor. Came through every morning at 7:30 with her squeaky cleaning cart and her gray uniform that hung a little too loose on her thin frame. She moved differently than the other maids. More careful. More deliberate. Like every action was being performed according to some internal checklist only she could see. Dominic found her fascinating in the way an entomologist finds an unusual insect fascinating. She never made eye contact. Never tried to make small talk when she knocked to ask if he needed anything. Just did her job with an almost obsessive precision and disappeared. Most people would have ignored her completely. But Dominic Ashford didn't get to where he was by ignoring details. So one afternoon, when Ariana was out shopping and he had the suite to himself, he decided to run a test. He'd been reading in the sitting area, a leather-bound book on the history of cryptocurrency that bored him to tears but looked impressive on camera. When he heard Taylor's keycard beep at the door, he made a split-second decision. He closed his eyes, slowed his breathing, let his body go slack against the couch cushions, pretended to sleep. The door opened quietly. He heard the soft squeak of her cartwheels, the gentle clink of supplies being moved. She was trying to be quiet, considerate of the guest who appeared to be napping. Dominic kept his breathing even, listening. Most people, when they thought they were alone with a sleeping stranger in a luxury hotel room, revealed their true nature. Some snooped through drawers. Some pocketed small items, a designer pen, a bottle of cologne. Some took photos of themselves in the fancy bathroom to post on social media. Dominic had seen it all. Humanity at its most basic. Its most greedy. He waited to see what Taylor would do. For a long moment, she didn't move. He could hear her breathing, shallow, slightly uneven, nervous. Then footsteps.
Soft.
Coming closer. He felt her presence near the couch. Close enough that if he opened his eyes, he'd see her face. And then, nothing. She moved away.
Back toward the bedroom.
He heard the rustle of sheets being changed. The bathroom door opening and closing. The sound of her humming that same melody she always hummed.
Soft.
Almost too quiet to hear. 20 minutes later, she was done. Dominic waited for the door to close before he opened his eyes. The suite was immaculate. Bed made with hospital corners. Towels arranged in perfect fan shapes. The bathroom mirror gleamed. Even the decorative pillows on the couch were fluffed and positioned at precise angles. But that wasn't what caught his attention. On the nightstand, next to his reading light, sat a small folded piece of paper. Dominic picked it up, unfolded it. The handwriting was careful, slightly shaky, like the person who wrote it wasn't confident in their words, but wanted to get them right. I noticed your reading light was flickering. I replaced the bulb. Hope your day is kind.
T.
Dominic stared at the note for a long time. She'd noticed the light was flickering. He hadn't even noticed. And instead of just replacing it and moving on, she'd left him a note. A personal touch. A tiny gesture of care that cost her nothing and benefited her in no way. He crumpled the note slowly in his fist. In Dominic's world, kindness was weakness. Sentiment was a liability. People did things for one of two reasons: fear or profit. Altruism was a myth perpetuated by naive idiots who hadn't learned how cruel the world really was. But this woman, this strange, awkward maid who could barely look him in the eye, had done something kind for no reason at all. It unsettled him, and Dominic Ashford hated being unsettled. He threw the note in the trash and poured himself 3 fingers of scotch, trying to wash away the uncomfortable feeling crawling up his spine. That night, he told Ariana about it over room service dinner. "There's something off about one of the maids," he said, cutting into a $40 steak that tasted like cardboard. Ariana looked up from her phone. She was 20 years younger than Dominic, 26 to his 46, with the kind of calculated beauty that came from good genes and better plastic surgery. Blonde hair that looked natural but wasn't. Lips that were just plump enough to be desirable without crossing into obvious. She'd married him for his money. He'd married her because she looked good in photos and didn't ask questions about his work. "Off how?" she asked, bored. "I don't know. She's just different." Ariana set down her phone, suddenly interested. Different like suspicious?
No.
Different like. He paused, searching for the word. Innocent. Genuine. Ariana's eyes narrowed. In her world, genuine people were either idiots or playing a long con. "You think she's a threat? I think she's a variable I don't understand yet. And I don't like variables." Ariana smiled. It was the smile she wore when she saw an opportunity. "Want me to handle it?" Dominic considered. Then nodded. "Find out what her deal is. Make friends. People like that are easy to manipulate if you know which buttons to push. Consider it done." And just like that, Taylor Lopez became a target she didn't know existed. The next evening, Ariana found Taylor in the basement laundry room. It was almost 8 p.m. Most of the day shift staff had gone home. The industrial washers hummed and clinked, filling the air with heat and the smell of bleach and fabric softener. Taylor was folding towels at one of the long metal tables. The same ritual she performed every day.
Fold. Smooth. Stack. Fold. Smooth. Stack.
"Hey there." Taylor jumped, nearly dropping the towel in her hands. She turned to see a woman standing in the doorway. Blonde. Beautiful. Wearing designer jeans and a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than Taylor's entire wardrobe. It took her a second to place the face. "Mrs. Ashford." From room 1217. "I'm so sorry," Taylor stammered. "Did you need something? I can get someone from the front desk." "Oh no, nothing like that." Ariana walked closer, her heels clicking on the concrete floor. "I just wanted to talk to you." Taylor's hands tightened on the towel. "Talk to me?"
"Yeah."
"I hope this isn't weird, but I wanted to say thank you for the note you left my husband. About the light bulb." Taylor's face flushed.
"Oh."
It was nothing. I just noticed it was flickering and thought. It was sweet." Ariana interrupted, her voice warm and syrupy. "Honestly, we stay in fancy hotels all the time, and nobody ever does stuff like that. Most people just do the bare minimum. You know? But you actually care." Taylor didn't know what to say. Compliments always felt like traps. Like someone was testing her to see if she'd react the right way. "I just try to do my job well," she managed. "No, it's more than that." Ariana leaned against the table, casual and friendly. "I can tell. You're different. In a good way." Different. That word again. Taylor focused on folding the towel in her hands. 43, 44, 45. "You know," Ariana continued, "my husband mentioned you. He said you're the only person in this entire hotel who seems genuinely honest." Taylor looked up surprised. "He said that?"
"He did."
"Dominic has incredible instincts about people. He can read them like books. And he said there's something special about you." Something warm and dangerous bloomed in Taylor's chest.
Hope.
The kind that hurt. Someone thought she was special. Not weird. Not broken. Special. That's really nice of him to say, Taylor whispered. Ariana smiled. It was the kind of smile that looked real if you didn't know what to look for. Listen, I know this might sound strange, but if you ever want to grab coffee or something, I'd love to chat more. It gets lonely, you know? Being in a new city. And you seem like someone who'd be a good friend. Taylor's heart hammered. You want to be friends? With me? Why not? You're kind. You're real. That's rare. Every rational part of Taylor's brain said this was too good to be true. Rich, beautiful women didn't want to be friends with awkward maids who counted towels and hummed to themselves. But the lonely part, the part that had been invisible for so long, wanted to believe it so badly it ached. I'd like that, Taylor said quietly. Perfect. I'll find you later this week, and we'll figure something out. Ariana squeezed Taylor's shoulder, a brief, friendly touch, and walked out, leaving Taylor standing in the humid laundry room with 45 folded towels and a dangerous seed of hope planted in her chest. What Taylor didn't see was the way Ariana's smile dropped the second she stepped into the elevator. The way her eyes went cold and calculating as she texted her husband. Got her. She's pathetically easy. What Taylor didn't know was that in 48 hours, that friendship would be used to frame her for murder. And the man sleeping in room 1217, the hunter who thought kindness was weakness, would be dead. Chapter 3. Jackson Holland had 3 rules. 3 rules that kept him alive for the past 9 years. 3 rules that meant the difference between survival and a silver bullet through the skull. Rule number 1. Don't shift. Not for any reason. Not when you're angry. Not when you're scared. Not even when every instinct in your body is screaming at you to let the wolf out. Because the moment you shift in a city like New York, you leave traces. Scent markers. Energy signatures that hunters can track. One transformation could lead them right to your door. Rule number 2. Don't fall in love. Don't get attached. Don't let anyone close enough to become a weakness. Because hunters didn't just kill wolves. They killed everyone the wolf cared about. Made them watch. Used their screams as bait. Rule number 3. Don't let anyone discover what you are. Not your coworkers. Not your neighbors. Not the woman at the bodega who saves you the last empanada every Thursday. Stay invisible. Stay forgettable. Stay alive. Jackson had followed these rules religiously for 9 years. And in the span of 6 months, Taylor Lopez had made him want to break every single one. He didn't mean for it to happen. Didn't plan to notice the way she folded her napkin into smaller and smaller squares when she was anxious. Didn't plan to start looking forward to 7 a.m. when she'd walk into the basement kitchen with her thermos of tea and sit 3 seats away from him in comfortable silence. Didn't plan to fall in love with a human woman who smelled like ancient magic and treated him like he was worth something. But here he was. Breaking. Jackson was born in a village, so small it didn't have a name on any map. Just a cluster of houses in the mountains of rural Colombia, where his family had lived for generations. His mother was human. His father was an alpha werewolf, one of the old bloodlines, the kind that could trace their ancestry back 1,000 years. Alphas like Jackson's father were rare. Born maybe once or twice a century. They were bigger, stronger, faster than regular wolves. Their bite could turn a human. Their howl could be heard for miles. And they carried a power in their blood that made them both revered and hunted. When Jackson was born, the village elders knew immediately what he was. They could see it in his eyes. The way they flashed gold in the firelight. The way animals went quiet when he walked past. Jackson was an alpha. Like his father. Like his grandfather before him. And for the first 19 years of his life, he thought that made him special. Protected. Then the hunters came. It happened on a Tuesday. Jackson remembered because Tuesdays were market days, and his mother had sent him into town to buy flour and coffee. He was gone for 3 hours. When he came back, his village was burning. 14 members of his pack.
Dead.
Shot with silver bullets or burned alive in their homes. The hunters had come at dawn, when most of the wolves were still in human form. Vulnerable, Jackson found his father's body in the town square. They'd chained him to a post, made him shift, and then they'd skinned him while he was still breathing. His mother was inside their house. She'd tried to hide in the cellar. They found her anyway. The only reason Jackson survived was because he wasn't there. And the only reason he didn't go back to fight was because his father's beta, a man named Tomas who'd been his father's best friend since childhood, grabbed him by the throat and said, "Your father died to keep you alive. Don't make it meaningless." Tomas had contacts. People who could move someone across borders without paperwork. Within a week, Jackson was on a cargo ship headed to Miami with a fake visa and $50 American sewn into the lining of his jacket. He was 19 years old, alone, and absolutely fucking terrified. The first 2 years in America were a blur of bad jobs and worse living conditions. He washed dishes in Miami, bussed tables in Atlanta, picked vegetables in Texas under a sun so brutal it blistered his skin, even with his wolf healing. He sent every penny he could back to his younger sister, Valentina. She'd been staying with relatives in Bogota when the attack happened. She was 16 now, studying to be a nurse, and Jackson would die before he let her end up like the rest of their family. 3 years ago, he made his way to New York. Found work at the Regency Grand through a guy who knew a guy who didn't ask questions about immigration status. The pay was under the table. The hours were brutal. But the basement kitchen was cold and quiet, and Jackson could disappear into the routine. Until Taylor. God, Taylor. He noticed her before she noticed him.
Hard not to.
She moved through the hotel like a ghost, and Jackson had gotten very good at recognizing people who were trying to be invisible. But it wasn't just that. It was her scent. Every person had a scent signature, a combination of genetics, diet, emotions, health. Most humans smelled relatively similar to Jackson's wolf senses. Variations on the same theme. But Taylor smelled like nothing he'd ever encountered. Earth after a rainstorm. Cedar smoke. Wild rosemary. And underneath it all, something older. Something that made the wolf inside him go completely still. His grandmother had smelled like that. Abuela Mariana, the pack's healer. The woman who could set broken bones with a touch and knew when someone was going to die 3 days before it happened. She'd had magic in her blood, the old kind, the kind that came from the earth itself. The village elders said she'd been touched by the moon. And somehow, impossibly, Taylor Lopez, a 24-year-old maid from Queens who arranged shampoo bottles by height, carried that same scent. It should have made Jackson stay away from her. Should have been a warning sign that she was dangerous, unpredictable, something he couldn't afford to get tangled up with. Instead, it drew him to her like gravity. He started taking his breaks when he knew she'd be in the basement kitchen. Started saving her the corner seat without acknowledging he was doing it. Started looking forward to the quiet moments where they existed in the same space without needing to perform for each other. And then, 3 weeks ago, everything shifted. It was almost midnight. Jackson had pulled a double shift because one of the other dishwashers called in sick. His hands were raw from the industrial soap. His back ached. And the wolf inside him was restless, pacing, wanting out after being caged in human skin for too many hours. He needed cold. Cold numbed the wolf senses, made it easier to keep control. So he slipped into the walk-in freezer. A massive room kept at -10 degrees Fahrenheit, stocked with enough food to feed the hotel for a month, and closed the door behind him. The cold hit him like a physical force, burned his lungs, made his eyes water.
Good.
He sank down onto a crate of frozen vegetables and put his head in his hands. He was so tired. Tired of running. Tired of hiding. Tired of living half a life, because the other half would get him killed. And lately, he'd been having dreams about his father. Nightmares where he was back in that village square, watching his father burn, unable to move or scream or do anything except stand there and watch. In the dreams, his father always looked at him at the end. Always said the same thing. "You were supposed to save us." Jackson knew it wasn't real. Knew his father would never have said that. But the guilt was real. The survivor's guilt that ate at him every single day. He should have been there. Should have fought. Should have died with his pack instead of running like a coward. His breath came faster. Harsher. The wolf surged up inside him, demanding release, demanding blood, demanding revenge on hunters who were probably dead or too far away to find. And then he heard the door open. Jackson's head snapped up. His eyes flashed gold, a warning sign that he was losing control. Taylor stood in the doorway. She was still in her uniform, her coat pulled tight around her thin frame. Her breath puffed out in clouds in the freezing air. She didn't say anything, didn't ask him what was wrong or why he was sitting in a freezer at midnight. She just stepped inside, let the door close behind her, and sat down on the crate next to him. The cold didn't seem to bother her. Or maybe it did, and she just didn't care. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then, quietly, Taylor started humming. The same melody she always hummed. The one he'd heard 100 times while she folded towels or wiped down counters. But this time he really listened. It was a lullaby. Slow and mournful and achingly beautiful. The kind of song that felt old. Like it had been passed down through generations, carried in the blood. Jackson's breath steadied. The wolf settled. The panic receded like a tide pulling back from shore. He didn't realize he was crying until he felt the wetness on his face. Tears freezing on his cheeks. "I'm sorry," he whispered. His voice cracked. "You shouldn't have to see me like this." Taylor stopped humming, looked at him with those strange, too knowing eyes. "You don't know what I am," Jackson said. The words tumbled out before he could stop them. "If you knew what I really was, you'd run. You'd be smart to run." Taylor tilted her head slightly. "I don't know what I am either," she said softly. "But I know you're good." Something broke inside Jackson's chest.
How?
He asked desperately. "How can you possibly know that?" "Because I see you." She said it so simply, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "Really see you. Not the dishwasher. Not the guy who hides. The person underneath. And that person is kind. And sad. And trying so hard to be okay even when everything hurts." Jackson stared at her. This strange, beautiful woman who saw through every wall he'd spent 9 years building. "You scare me," he admitted. "I scare everyone," Taylor said. A ghost of a smile. "I'm used to it."
No.
"Not like that." Jackson shifted closer. "Just an inch. You scare me. Because you make me want things I can't have. Things that will get you killed if I'm not careful. What if I'm willing to take that risk? You don't understand what you're risking. Then tell me." Jackson's hand moved before his brain caught up. His fingers brushed her cheek. She didn't flinch, didn't pull away, just leaned into his touch like she'd been starving for it. "Taylor, I know you're hiding something," she whispered. "I've known for months. And I don't care. Whatever it is, whoever you are, it doesn't change the fact that you're the only person in 3 years who's made me feel like maybe I'm not completely broken." Jackson's thumb traced the curve of her jaw. She was so warm. Even in the freezing cold of the walk-in, her skin was warm. They leaned closer. Her breath mixed with his. He could hear her heartbeat, fast but steady, nervous but not afraid. He wanted to kiss her so badly, it physically hurt. Wanted to pull her close and breathe her in and let himself have this one good thing in a life full of blood and running and fear. But at the last second, he pulled away.
Dropped his hand.
Put distance between them, even though it felt like tearing off his own skin. "I can't," he said roughly. "I can't give you what you deserve." Taylor's face shuddered. But she didn't cry, didn't beg. Just looked at him with those steady eyes and said, "Maybe I get to decide what I deserve." Then she stood up and walked out of the freezer, leaving Jackson alone in the cold with his hardened pieces and the wolf howling in rage at his own cowardice. That night, Jackson lay awake in his tiny apartment in the Bronx, a studio with water-stained ceilings and a radiator that clanked like it was dying, and made a decision. He would tell her the truth. About the wolf. About the hunters. About the danger. And if she ran, at least she'd run knowing what she was running from. But when he arrived at work the next morning, ready to find Taylor and finally be honest, he smelled it immediately. Dominic Ashford's scent. All over her uniform,
Her skin.
her hair. The hunter had touched her. Been close enough to leave his mark. Jackson's vision went red. The wolf surged up, demanding blood. He forced it down, forced himself to breathe, to think. Dominic was staying in room 1217. Jackson had known the hunter was in the hotel for 2 weeks now. Had been avoiding him, planning an escape route, getting ready to run again. But now the hunter had involved Taylor. And that changed everything. Jackson spent that entire day torn between panic and rage. He watched Taylor from a distance. She seemed fine, normal, folding her towels, humming her song, arranging her bottles. But the hunter's scent clung to her like oil. That night, Jackson made another decision. He would tell Taylor everything tomorrow morning, before her shift. He'd explain about the wolves, about Dominic, about why she needed to stay far away from room 1217. He'd break all his rules if it meant keeping her safe. But when morning came, when Jackson walked into the hotel at 6:30 a.m., ready to find Taylor and finally tell her the truth, he heard it. A scream. High-pitched. Terrified. Coming from the 17th floor. Jackson ran. Took the stairs 3 at a time. His heart hammering. The wolf pushing against his skin. The scent hit him before he reached the hallway.
Blood. Fresh.
Coppery and thick. And underneath it, something worse.
Death.
He rounded the corner and saw the crowd gathered outside room 1217. Security. Other maids. Guests in robes and confused expressions. And in the center of it all, Taylor. Standing frozen. Her cleaning cart abandoned. Her face white as paper. Jackson pushed through the crowd. Got close enough to see into the open doorway. Dominic Ashford lay dead on silk sheets. Stabbed through the heart. Blood everywhere. And every eye in that hallway was on Taylor. The woman Jackson loved. The woman who smelled like magic and saw him when no one else could. The woman who was about to be arrested for a murder she didn't commit. And Jackson realized with cold, crystallizing horror. He was already too late. Chapter 4. At 6:47 a.m., Taylor Lopez became a murder suspect. She'd unlocked room 1217 the same way she unlocked every room on her morning route. Master key card. 2 beeps. Turn the handle. Knock twice while pushing the door open and call out, "Housekeeping." The routine was automatic. Muscle memory built over 3 years of identical mornings. But the moment that door swung open, everything stopped being routine. The smell hit her first. Metallic.
Wrong.
Like pennies left in standing water. Then she saw him, Dominic Ashford, sprawled across those champagne-colored silk sheets like a broken doll. His white undershirt soaked through with blood. So much blood it had pooled beneath him and dripped onto the carpet Taylor had steam cleaned just yesterday. His eyes were open, staring at the ceiling. Empty. And there, buried in his chest right over his heart, was the silver letter opener from his desk. The fancy one with the scrollwork handle. The one Taylor had polished and set back in its exact position every single day. Her brain stuttered. Tried to process.
Failed.
This wasn't real. Couldn't be real. People didn't just die in hotel rooms. Not like this. Not with their blood-staining 1,000-thread count sheets and their mouths frozen open in what might have been surprise or pain or both. Taylor's cleaning cart slipped from her hands. The bottle of glass polish hit the floor. Rolled. The sound echoed in the terrible silence. She should have screamed. Should have run. Should have done anything except stand there like a mannequin while her mind went completely, utterly blank. But Taylor's brain didn't work like other people's brains. When things got too overwhelming, too loud, too bright, too much, she didn't panic outwardly. She went still, quiet, like someone had hit a power switch and turned her off. Her body started rocking, just slightly, forward and back, forward and back. A self-soothing behavior she'd had since childhood. Something she did when the world stopped making sense. She didn't know how long she stood there. Could have been seconds. Could have been minutes. Time felt elastic.
Broken.
Then she heard footsteps. Running. Someone shouting. Hotel security burst through the door. Two men in ill-fitting suits who usually spent their shifts watching cameras and eating vending machine snacks. The younger one, Tony, his name was Tony, took one look at the scene and went pale. Holy, he grabbed his radio.
We need police.
17th floor. Room 1217. His voice cracked. We've got a body. The older guard, Frank, moved toward Taylor. His hand went to her shoulder. She flinched.
Hard.
Nearly fell backward. Don't touch me, she whispered. The first word she'd spoken since opening that door. Frank raised his hands.
Easy.
Easy. Just need you to step outside, okay?
Come on.
Let's get you out of here. But Taylor couldn't move. Her legs felt like cement. Frank had to physically guide her into the hallway. She let him because she didn't have the capacity to resist. Her body moved on autopilot while her brain tried desperately to reboot. Other staff were gathering. Guests poking their heads out of rooms. Whispering. Staring. And then, oh my God, no. Ariana Ashford came running down the hallway. She was wearing silk pajamas and a matching robe. Her hair perfect despite the early hour. Her face twisted in what was supposed to be grief. She tried to push past security into the room. Tony blocked her. Ma'am, you can't. That's my husband. Ariana shrieked. Let me see him. Please. Ma'am, this is a crime scene. I need you to. Ariana's eyes landed on Taylor. And something shifted in her expression. Something cold and calculating that lasted maybe half a second before disappearing behind tears. You. Ariana breathed. She pointed at Taylor with a shaking hand. What did you do? Taylor blinked. What? What did you do to my husband? Ariana's voice pitched higher. Hysterical. Oh God, I knew something was wrong. I knew it. I didn't. Taylor's voice came out flat. Monotone.
Wrong.
She knew she sounded wrong, but she couldn't fix it. I just found him. I was cleaning and… You killed him. Ariana sobbed. You were obsessed with him. You left him those creepy notes. Taylor's brain stuttered again. Notes? I left him one note. About the light bulb. That's not. She was always watching him, Ariana said to the security guards. To the growing crowd. To anyone who would listen. Always finding excuses to come into our room. Dominic told me she made him uncomfortable, but he didn't want to get her fired because he felt sorry for her. That's not true, Taylor said. Her hands started tapping against her thighs. Thumb to each finger in sequence. A stim. Something to ground herself. I wouldn't, but nobody was listening to her. The police arrived 7 minutes later. 4 officers. 2 detectives. Crime scene techs with cameras and plastic gloves and evidence bags. The lead detective was a woman in her 40s with iron gray hair pulled back in a severe bun. Detective Ramirez, her badge said. She had the look of someone who'd seen too much and slept too little. She took one look at the scene. Then at Taylor, still standing in the hallway with security, rocking slightly and tapping her fingers in patterns. That the one who found him? Ramirez asked. Tony nodded. She was in the room when we got here, standing over the body. I wasn't standing over him, Taylor said quietly. I was just standing. Ramirez's eyes narrowed. What's your name? Taylor. Taylor Lopez. I work housekeeping. Okay, Taylor. I'm going to need you to come down to the station with me. Answer some questions. Taylor's chest tightened. Am I in trouble? That depends. Did you kill Dominic Ashford?
No.
Then you've got nothing to worry about. But Ramirez's tone said otherwise. They put Taylor in the back of a police car. Didn't handcuff her, not yet, but made it clear she wasn't free to leave. Through the window, Taylor saw Jackson. He was standing with the other kitchen staff, held back by the police tape. His face was pale. His hands clenched into fists at his sides. Their eyes met. And in that moment, Taylor saw something in his expression that terrified her more than anything else that morning.
Guilt.
The interrogation room at the precinct was exactly like the ones on TV. Gray walls, metal table bolted to the floor, a mirror that was obviously one-way glass, fluorescent lights that hummed at a frequency that made Taylor's teeth hurt. Detective Ramirez sat across from her, opened a manila folder, pulled out photos, crime scene photos, Dominic Ashford's body from every angle, close-ups of the wound, the silver letter opener, the blood-soaked sheets. Taylor looked away. I don't want to see those. You saw them this morning, though, didn't you?
Yes.
But I don't want to see them again. Ramirez leaned back in her chair, studied Taylor with eyes that missed nothing. You seem very calm for someone who just found a dead body. I'm not calm, Taylor said. Her fingers tapped against her leg under the table.
I'm overwhelmed.
I don't show it the way other people do.
Uh-huh.
Tell me what happened this morning. Taylor explained, step by step. She unlocked the room,
Saw the body.
dropped her cart. Security came. That was it. You didn't touch anything?
No.
Didn't try to help him?
He was already dead.
His eyes were open, but nobody was there. I could tell. Ramirez made a note. What was your relationship with Mr. Ashford? I didn't have one. He was a guest. I cleaned his room. That's it. Yes. You never spoke to him? Only to ask if he needed anything. Or to say good morning. Ramirez pulled out another piece of paper. The note. The one Taylor had left about the light bulb. You wrote this. It wasn't a question. Yes, Taylor said. The reading light in his room was flickering. I replaced the bulb and left him a note, so he'd know it was fixed. Why? Taylor blinked. Why what? Why leave a note? Why not just replace the bulb and move on? Because I thought it would be nice to let him know someone noticed, that someone cared about the small things. His wife says you were obsessed with him. Taylor's stomach dropped. What?
No.
I barely knew him. She says you found excuses to go into their room, that you stared at him, made him uncomfortable. That's not true. Taylor's voice rose. Her hands started shaking. I cleaned their room the same way I clean every room. I didn't. Why would she lie? I don't know. Taylor pressed her palms flat against the table, trying to ground herself, trying to stay present. I thought we were friends. She said she wanted to be friends. Ramirez's eyebrow arched. You and Mrs. Ashford were friends? She talked to me in the laundry room, said I seemed nice, said her husband thought I was honest. And you believed that? A billionaire's wife wanted to be friends with a maid. The way Ramirez said it made Taylor feel small, stupid, naive. I thought maybe. Taylor's voice cracked. Nobody ever wants to be my friend. I thought maybe she was different. Ramirez sighed, closed the folder. Look, I'm going to be straight with you. This doesn't look good. You had access to the room. You had means. The murder weapon was right there on his desk. And, according to his wife, you had motive. What motive? Taylor's voice went shrill. I didn't even know him. Obsession. Rejection. Maybe he said something that set you off. I didn't hurt him. I don't hurt people. I fix things. Tears were streaming down Taylor's face now, but she barely felt them. I just fix things. Ramirez stood. We're going to hold you for 24 hours while we process the scene. Get a lawyer, Taylor. You're going to need one. They moved Taylor to a holding cell. Gray concrete walls. A metal bench. A toilet in the corner that smelled like industrial cleaner and despair. She sat on the bench, pulled her knees to her chest, and tried to make sense of a world that had stopped making sense. Outside, in the real world, the story was already spreading like wildfire. Hotel Maid murders billionaire guest in luxury suite. That was the headline on the New York Post. They'd gotten her employee photo from somewhere. The one where she wasn't smiling because smiling for photos always felt fake and uncomfortable. In the picture, she looked cold, distant.
Guilty.
Online, the comments were vicious. Of course she did it. Look at her. Total weirdo. Why do hotels hire people like this? She's clearly unstable. I bet she was stalking him. These quiet ones always snap. Someone made a meme. Taylor's face with the caption, "When you clean rooms, but make a mess of your life." It got 12,000 shares in 3 hours. The other maids at the Regency Grand were interviewed by reporters. Most of them said the same thing. Taylor was strange. Kept to herself. Had weird routines. Yeah, they could see her snapping. Only one person defended her. Brielle. The woman who'd once called her weird for counting towels, told a reporter. Taylor wouldn't hurt a fly. She's just different. That doesn't make her a killer. But that quote got buried under all the others. Back at the hotel, Jackson stood in the basement kitchen and felt his entire world collapse. He'd watched them take Taylor away in a police car. Watched her face through the window. Pale, shocked, utterly lost. And he'd done nothing. Said nothing. Because speaking up meant exposing himself. Meant becoming a target. Meant risking everything he'd survived for 9 years. But staying silent meant letting Taylor take the fall for a murder she didn't commit. Jackson's hands gripped the edge of the steel counter until his knuckles went white. He knew the truth. He'd seen the body before the police arrived. Had pushed through the crowd and gotten close enough to see the wound. A silver letter opener through the heart. Perfect placement.
No hesitation marks.
No signs of struggle. That wasn't a human kill.
Humans panica.
Made mistakes. Stabbed multiple times, or in the wrong places. Their hands shook. They left defensive wounds on the victim. But Dominic Ashford had died instantly. Efficiently. The way someone with supernatural strength and precision would kill. This was a shifter kill. And Jackson knew exactly what that meant. The real murderer wasn't some disturbed maid with obsessive tendencies. The real murderer was another wolf. Someone who wanted Dominic Ashford dead for the same reason Jackson had wanted him dead for years. Revenge.
But who?
Jackson ran through the possibilities. He'd been careful. Hadn't made contact with any other wolves since arriving in New York. Hadn't left markers or signals that would draw pack attention. Unless his blood ran cold. Unless someone from his past had found him, followed him, and decided to take care of the hunter problem themselves. And now Taylor was paying the price. Jackson's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. She smells like magic.
Keep her safe.
Or lose everything. His hands shook as he read it again.
Someone knew.
About Taylor. About what she was. And they were watching. Jackson deleted the text. Threw his apron on the counter. And made a decision that would either save Taylor's life or destroy his own. He was done hiding. Done running. Done letting fear make his choices. Taylor had said to herself, "Maybe I get to decide what I deserve." And she deserved the truth. All of it. Even if it cost him everything. Chapter 5. Some secrets are kept to protect others. Some secrets are kept because revealing them means losing everything. And some secrets are kept because, once you speak them out loud, there's no taking them back.
No pretending.
No going back to the before. Jackson Holland had kept his secret for 9 years. 9 years of looking over his shoulder. 9 years of swallowing the wolf down every time it tried to claw its way to the surface. 9 years of being half a person because showing his whole self meant a death sentence. But Taylor was sitting in a holding cell right now, wearing clothes that weren't hers and answering questions about a murder she didn't commit. And Jackson was done choosing survival over the people he loved. They released Taylor on bail 36 hours after her arrest.
$52,000.
Her court-appointed lawyer, a tired-looking woman named Patricia Chun who handled too many cases and drank too much coffee, had argued that Taylor had no criminal record, no passport, no means of fleeing. She was a flight risk only if you counted the possibility of her hiding in a cleaning closet somewhere. Judge agreed. Set bail. Slapped an ankle monitor on her. Taylor walked out of the precinct at 4 p.m. on a Thursday, blinking in the late afternoon sun like she'd been underground for a year instead of a day and a half. Patricia gave her a business card and instructions. Don't leave the city. Don't talk to the press. Don't go anywhere near the Regency Grand. And for God's sake, don't talk to anyone about this case, W. Without me present. Taylor nodded, took the subway back to Queens, climbed the 3 flights of stairs to her tiny studio apartment in a building that smelled like old cooking oil and somebody's grandmother's perfume. She unlocked her door, stepped inside, and just stood there. Her apartment was exactly how she'd left it. Bed made with hospital corners. Books arranged by height on the shelf. 3 coffee mugs hanging on hooks under the cabinet. Largest to smallest, handles all facing the same direction. Everything in its place. Everything except her. Taylor set her keys on the hook by the door. Walked to her bed.
Sat down.
And that's when she finally let herself fall apart. She cried for 20 minutes. Ugly crying. The kind that made her throat raw and her eyes swell, and left her gasping for air between sobs. She cried for Dominic Ashford, who died brutally in a room she was supposed to keep clean and safe. She cried for herself, because her face was all over the news and strangers thought she was a monster. She cried for Abuela Rosa, who would have known what to do, who would have held her and told her stories until the world made sense again. And she cried because she was so goddamn tired of being alone. When the tears finally stopped, she washed her face, made tea, sat at her small kitchen table, and stared at the wall. The ankle monitor felt like a shackle, a constant reminder that she wasn't free, that her life wasn't her own anymore. She didn't hear the window open, didn't hear him climb through until he was already inside, closing it quietly behind him. Taylor's head snapped up. Jackson stood in her living room, breathing hard like he'd run the whole way here. His hair was disheveled, his shirt wrinkled, and his eyes were wild, desperate, gold around the edges in a way that should have been impossible. Jackson. Taylor stood slowly. How did you fire escape? He said. His voice was rough, strained. I needed to see you. Needed to make sure you were okay. I'm out on bail. For murder. So no, I'm not really okay. Jackson flinched. I know. And I'm so sorry. This is my fault. All of it. How is this your fault? You didn't kill him.
No.
But he died because of me. Jackson started pacing, back and forth across her small living room like a caged animal. And you're being blamed for it because someone is using you to hurt me or hide what they did, or, I don't know. But I can't just stand by and let this happen. Taylor's chest tightened. Jackson, you're not making sense. He stopped pacing, turned to face her, and the look in his eyes made her breath catch. I need to show you something, he said quietly. And after I do, you'll probably never want to see me again. You'll probably call the police or run or... Hell, I don't know what you'll do. But you deserve to know the truth. What truth? Jackson's hands were shaking. What I am. Taylor took a step toward him. I don't care what you are. You will. His voice cracked. Everyone does. Try me. For a long moment, Jackson just looked at her. This strange, brave woman who'd been to hell and back in the last 2 days and was still standing, still willing to listen. Okay, he whispered. Okay. But don't scream.
Please.
If you scream, someone will call the cops and I can't. I can't let them take me. Taylor's heart hammered. But she nodded. I won't scream. Jackson closed his eyes.
Took a breath.
And then, his body convulsed. Not like a seizure. Like something inside him was trying to tear its way out. His bones cracked. Loud. Obscene. The sound of a body breaking itself and rebuilding in real time. Taylor's hand flew to her mouth, but she didn't make a sound. Fur sprouted along Jackson's arms. His face elongated. His hands twisted into paws tipped with claws that could tear through steel. His clothes should have ripped, should have shredded. But somehow they melted into his shifting form, like his body knew how to protect them even while it was transforming into something else entirely. Within seconds, maybe 10, maybe less, Jackson Holland was gone. And in his place stood a wolf. Not a regular wolf. Not the kind you'd see in a zoo or a nature documentary. This was massive. Easily the size of a small horse. Silver-gray fur that seemed to shimmer in the dim light of Taylor's apartment. Eyes that glowed molten gold. Muscles coiled beneath skin like steel cables ready to snap. The wolf stood in the center of her living room, breathing hard, steam rising from its muzzle in the cool air. Taylor should have screamed. Should have run. Should have grabbed a knife or a phone or anything to protect herself. Instead, she dropped to her knees.
Slowly.
Carefully. Keeping her movements small and non-threatening. The wolf's ears flicked forward. Watching her, Taylor extended one trembling hand. Palm up. The way you'd approach a scared dog. "Jackson," she whispered. The wolf whined. A low, mournful sound that came from deep in its chest. And then it moved, padded forward on paws that made no sound on her wooden floor, lowered its massive head, and pressed its muzzle into her open palm. The fur was softer than she expected.
Warm.
Real. Taylor's other hand came up, slowly, and touched the side of the wolf's face. Her fingers traced the line of its jaw, the curve of its ear. "It's really you," she breathed. The wolf closed its eyes, leaned into her touch like it was starving for it. For a moment, they just stayed like that. A woman and a wolf in a tiny apartment in Queens, both of them broken in different ways, both of them finding something like peace in each other's presence. Then the wolf pulled back. Its body convulsed again, bones cracking in reverse, fur receding, paws becoming hands. Jackson collapsed to his knees in front of her, gasping. Human again. Fully clothed, somehow. His face pale and slick with sweat. "Are you okay?"
Taylor asked.
Her hands hovered over him, wanting to help but not sure how.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of energy. Especially when I haven't shifted in months. Months. Jackson nodded. Sat back on his heels. I don't shift unless I absolutely have to. Too dangerous. Leaves traces. Scents. Things hunters can track. Hunters. Taylor's voice was steady, like Dominic Ashford. Jackson's eyes snapped to hers. You knew, I guessed.
Just now.
When you said he died, because of you. She sat back, putting a little space between them. Tell me everything.
So he did.
Jackson told her about the village in Colombia, about his father, the Alpha, about the morning he came home to find his family dead and his entire world burned to ash.
He told her about running.
About the cargo ship and the fake visa and the years of looking over his shoulder, waiting for the bullet he knew would eventually come. He told her about Dominic Ashford, the hunter who'd led the raid on his village. The man who collected werewolf pelts like trophies and believed shifters were abominations that needed to be exterminated. He wasn't just a billionaire, Jackson said, his voice hollow. He was the man who killed my family. My father. My mother. 14 members of my pack, slaughtered in their sleep or burned alive in their homes. And I ran. Like a coward. I ran, and I've been running ever since. You were 19, Taylor said softly. You survived. That's not cowardice. Feels like it. Jackson's hands clenched into fists. And now he's dead, and you're being blamed for it, and his voice broke. I wanted him dead. God, Taylor, I've dreamed about killing him for 9 years. But I didn't do it. I swear on my sister's life, I didn't touch him. Taylor believed him.
She didn't know why. Didn't know how.
But some deep, instinctive part of her knew that Jackson was telling the truth. Then who did, she asked. I don't know. But it was a shifter. Had to be. The wound was too precise. Too clean. And the weapon. Jackson's jaw tightened. Silver doesn't just hurt us. It burns. Whoever used that letter opener knew exactly what they were doing. So there's another werewolf in New York. One who wanted Dominic dead. At least one. Maybe more. I don't know. Jackson ran his hands through his hair. I've been so careful. Stayed away from pack territories. Didn't leave markers. Didn't make contact with other wolves. But someone knows I'm here.
Someone knew about Dominic.
and they're using you to cover their tracks. Taylor processed this, her brain working through the pieces like a puzzle. The wife, she said suddenly, Ariana,
She lied about me.
said I was obsessed with her husband. Why would she do that unless she's involved? Jackson's eyes widened.
She knew about me.
She had to. Dominic wouldn't have come here without telling her what he was hunting. So, she's either protecting the real killer or she is the real killer. They stared at each other. Can humans become werewolves?
Taylor asked.
Not on their own. You have to be bitten by an alpha during a full moon. And even then, not everyone survives the transformation. Jackson paused. But there are other things. Hybrids. People born to one human parent and one wolf parent. They're rare. Unstable. Most of them don't live past childhood. But some do. Some do. Taylor stood. Started pacing now. Her mind racing. Okay.
So,
We need to prove I didn't kill him. Which means we need to find out who did. And if Ariana is involved, we need evidence. Taylor. I'm not going to prison for a murder I didn't commit, Jackson. And I'm not going to let you keep running for the rest of your life because some hunter had a vendetta. She turned to face him. You said you wanted him dead. I get that. But you didn't kill him. So let's find out who did and make them pay for it. Jackson stood slowly. You understand what you're saying? What you're risking? I understand that my life is already over unless we fix this. I understand that you're the only person who's ever seen me, really seen me, and I'm not letting you disappear. Taylor's voice shook, but she didn't look away. My whole life, people told me I was wrong.
broken.
Too much or not enough. And then you showed up and you were kind and you saved me a seat, and you didn't make me feel like I needed to be fixed. You're a werewolf. And you're still the first person who ever made me feel like maybe, just maybe, I was exactly right the way I am. Jackson's throat worked. Taylor. She crossed the space between them, took his hands in hers. So, what do we do now? She asked. Jackson looked down at their joined hands. At this impossible woman who just watched him turn into a monster and was still standing here, holding on to him like he was worth saving. We investigate, he said quietly. We find evidence. And we take down whoever did this before they can hurt you again. Together?
Together.
Taylor squeezed his hands. Good. Because I have an idea. What kind of idea? The kind that's probably illegal and definitely dangerous. She smiled. It was small and tentative but real. You in? Jackson smiled back. And for the first time in 9 years, he felt something he thought he'd lost forever.
Hope.
I'm in. But what they didn't know, what they couldn't have known, was that Ariana Ashford was already 3 steps ahead. She was standing in a penthouse apartment across town, staring out at the Manhattan skyline with a glass of wine in one hand and a phone in the other. On the phone screen was a photo. Grainy. Taken from a distance. But clear enough.
Dexon Holland.
Midshift. Caught between human and wolf. Ariana smiled. Got you, she whispered. And then she made a call. To someone who'd been waiting for this information for a very long time. Someone who collected wolves the way other people collected stamps. Someone who'd pay a fortune for the location of a rare alpha bloodline. The phone rang twice before a voice answered.
Cold.
Clinical. Do you have confirmation? I have proof, Ariana said. Photographic evidence. And I know where he's hiding. Send me everything. I'll have a team there within the hour. What about the girl? The maid. A pause. Is she human? I don't think so. She smells wrong.
Old.
Like something from before. Then she's valuable too. Take them both alive if possible. Dead, if necessary. The line went dead. Ariana finished her wine, set the glass down, and started packing. By morning, she'd be gone. $50 million richer. And Taylor Lopez and Jackson Holland would be nothing but specimens in someone's private laboratory. Or corpses. Either way, Ariana didn't care. She'd gotten what she wanted. And that was all that mattered. Chapter 6. Every killer leaves a trace. A fingerprint. A fiber. A mistake made in the heat of the moment when adrenaline clouds judgment and the body acts faster than the brain can keep up. But this killer? This killer left a message. And Taylor and Jackson were about to decode it. They met at midnight in a 24-hour diner 3 blocks from Taylor's apartment. The kind of place with cracked vinyl booths and a waitress who'd seen too much to care about 2 people huddled over coffee at an ungodly hour. Jackson had brought a laptop. Stolen from the hotel's administrative office during his last shift before they suspended him, pending investigation. Which was corporate speak for "we think you might be involved but don't have proof yet." Taylor had brought a notebook. The kind with grid paper that helped her organize her thoughts into neat columns and rows. "Okay," Jackson said, opening the laptop. "You said you had an idea." "The security footage," Taylor said. "The hotel keeps everything recorded for 90 days. Every hallway, every elevator, every entrance and exit. They'll have given that to the police already. They gave them the edited version. The clips that show me going into the room. Me standing there. Me looking guilty." Taylor's fingers tapped against her coffee mug. "But the raw footage? All of it? That's stored on a server in the security office. And I know where the security office is. I know when the guards take their breaks. I know the cleaning schedule for that floor." Jackson stared at her. "You want to break into the hotel? I want to get the truth. And the truth is on those servers." "Taylor, if we get caught." "We won't." She met his eyes.
Steady. Determined.
"You can smell people, right? Know when they're coming?" "Yeah." "Then you'll know, if anyone's nearby. And I can move through that hotel like a ghost. I've been doing it for 3 years."
She paused.
"Besides, what choice do we have? Wait for the trial? Hope my public defender can prove reasonable doubt? I'm not leaving my life in the hands of a system that's already decided I'm guilty." Jackson wanted to argue, wanted to tell her this was too dangerous, too reckless. But he looked at her face, at the dark circles under her eyes and the ankle monitor peeking out from under her jeans, and knew she was right. They didn't have time for caution. "Okay," he said. "We do this tomorrow night. 3 a.m. The overnight security guard takes his smoke break at 3:15. That gives us a 20-minute window. 20 minutes is enough. It had to be. The next night, they approached the Regency Grand from the service entrance. The one staff used for deliveries and trash removal. The one nobody paid attention to because it was grimy and utilitarian, and rich people preferred to pretend places like it didn't exist. Taylor still had her employee key card. Technically, she was suspended, not fired. The card worked. They slipped inside. The basement was exactly how Taylor remembered. Fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. The smell of industrial cleaner and old concrete. The distant hum of the hotel's massive HVAC system keeping hundreds of rooms at exactly 72 degrees. Jackson's senses were on high alert. He could hear heartbeats 3 floors above them. Could smell the lingering traces of 1,000 different people who'd passed through these halls. But right now they were alone. Taylor led them through a maze of corridors to the security office. A windowless room with a wall of monitors showing live feeds from every corner of the hotel. The door was locked. Taylor pulled out a key. One she wasn't supposed to have. One she'd borrowed from maintenance 6 months ago and never returned because sometimes she needed to access storage closets after hours, and waiting for someone with proper authorization made her anxious. She unlocked the door. They stepped inside. Jackson immediately moved to the monitors. "How long before the guard comes back?" Taylor checked her watch. 17 minutes. "Then let's move." The server was in the corner. A black tower with blinking lights and enough hard drives to store a decade of footage. Jackson pulled up the interface. Started navigating through folders and timestamps. "What date?" he asked. 2 days ago. Start at midnight. That's when the night shift begins. Jackson found the file. Loaded it. The screen split into a grid.
12 camera angles.
All showing different parts of the 17th floor. They watched in silence. At 1:47 a.m., Ariana Ashford left her suite. She was wearing a silk robe and carrying something small in her hand. The camera angle made it hard to see what. She walked down the hallway, stopped at a door, used a key card. Room 1217. Her own room. The one she shared with her husband. Why would she need a key card for her own room? Taylor whispered. She wouldn't. Unless she wanted it documented. Wanted proof, she went back. Ariana disappeared inside. The timestamp ticked forward.
1:52 a.m. 2:03 a.m. 2:14 a.m.
At 2:14 a.m., Ariana emerged. Still wearing the robe. But her hands were empty now, and there was something dark on her sleeve. A stain that looked black in the low light of the hallway.
Blood.
She killed him, Taylor breathed. She actually killed him. Jackson's jaw clenched. Keep watching. Ariana walked to the elevator. Pressed the button. The doors opened. She stepped inside.
Jackson switched camera angles.
Followed her through the hotel's surveillance network. She got off on the 5th floor. Walked to a different room.
Knocked.
The door opened. A man stood in the doorway.
Tall.
Broad-shouldered. Dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. Jackson's entire body went rigid. No, he whispered.
No, no, no. What?
Who is that? Nikolai Volkov. Jackson's voice was hollow. He's the alpha who sold out my pack. Taylor's blood ran cold. He's here? In New York. Apparently. Jackson's hands were shaking. And he's working with Ariana. They watched as Ariana and Nikolai spoke. Too far from the camera to hear. But their body language said enough.
Ariana handed him something.
Nikolai examined it. Nodded. Then Ariana left. Went back to her own floor. Back to her room where her husband lay dead. And she called the front desk. On the footage, they could see the timestamp. 2:47 a.m. Ariana, hysterical, screaming that something was wrong. That her husband wasn't responding. That someone needed to check on him. Security arrived at 2:54 a.m. And at 6:47 a.m., Taylor opened the door. She waited, Taylor said slowly. She killed him at 2:14. But she waited over 4 hours to report it. Why? To make sure he was good and dead.
And to
E.T. up the scene exactly how she wanted it. Jackson scrolled through more footage.
Look.
At 6:30 a.m., right before your shift starts, Ariana goes back into the room. She's only in there for 3 minutes. Then she leaves. What was she doing? Staging. Making sure everything looked right. Making sure the story would hold. Taylor's hands curled into fists. She planned this. All of it. The friendship. The notes. The accusations. She used me. Jackson closed the laptop. We need to follow her. See where she goes. Who else she talks to.
How?
I have an ankle monitor. I can't leave the city without violating bail. Then I go. You stay here, and...
No.
Taylor's voice was sharp. We're in this together. Remember? Jackson looked at her. At this woman who'd been through hell and was still standing. Still fighting. Together, he agreed. They left the hotel the same way they came in. Quiet. Invisible. And for the next 2 days, they became shadows. Jackson tracked Ariana's scent through the city. It was easy. She wore expensive perfume that marked her like a beacon. She went to her bank. Transferred money. Large amounts. To accounts in the Cayman Islands. She met with a real estate agent. Looked at properties in Monaco. She was getting ready to run. And on the 3rd day, she met with Nikolai again. This time, in Central Park. Near Bethesda Fountain where tourists took photos and street performers played music for tips. Jackson watched from a distance. His wolf senses picking up every word even across the crowded plaza. Do you have it? Nikolai asked. His accent was thick. Russian maybe. Or Eastern European. I have proof, Ariana said. Photos. Documentation. Everything you need. And the alpha? You're certain? I watched him shift. He's living in some dump in the Bronx and working as a dishwasher. Pathetic, really. Nikolai smiled. It was the kind of smile that made Jackson's blood run cold. Dominic's family will pay well for this information. They've been looking for that bloodline for generations. I don't care what they do with him. I just want my money. You'll have it. Once the extraction team confirms the target. What about the girl? The maid? Nikolai's expression shifted. What about her? She smells wrong. Not human. Not exactly. Interesting. Nikolai pulled out his phone. Made a note. We'll take her too. Run some tests. If she's valuable, you'll get a bonus. Ariana's eyes gleamed. How much of a bonus? Enough to buy that villa in Monaco outright. They shook hands. Jackson's vision went red. He wanted to shift. Wanted to tear Nikolai apart with his bare hands. Wanted to make him pay for every member of his pack who died because of his betrayal. But he forced himself to stay still. Stay human. Stay hidden. Because if he attacked now, he'd prove them right. He'd become the monster they claimed he was. And Taylor would still be framed for murder. He waited until they separated. Until Ariana left in a taxi and Nikolai walked toward the subway. Then Jackson went back to Taylor's apartment and told her everything. Taylor listened in silence, her face getting paler with every word. She pretended to be my friend, Taylor said finally, her voice small, broken. I thought someone finally liked me. Thought maybe I wasn't as weird as everyone said. But she was just using me. The whole time. Jackson crossed the room, pulled her into his arms. She used your goodness, he said fiercely. Your kindness. Your trust. That's on her, not you. You are not broken, Taylor. You're not weird. You're not wrong. You're just you. And that's more than enough. Taylor buried her face in his chest. I wanted to believe her so badly. I wanted to believe someone could see past all my stuff, all the ways I don't fit. I see you, Jackson whispered. And I don't want you to fit. I want you exactly as you are. They stood like that for a long time. Two broken people holding each other together in a world that wanted them torn apart. Finally, Taylor pulled back, wiped her eyes. We need evidence, she said. Real evidence. Not just surveillance footage. Something we can give to the police without exposing you. The murder weapon, Jackson said. If we can find it and prove it belongs to Nikolai, we can tie him to the murder. And Ariana to him. Where would she hide it? Her suite. She hasn't checked out yet. She's waiting for the money to clear before she disappears. Taylor's mind raced. I still have my key card. I know which rooms are being cleaned when. If we time it right, we can get in during turnover. When housekeeping is switching shifts and nobody's paying attention. That's breaking and entering. If we're caught, we're already being hunted by werewolf traffickers and framed for murder. Breaking and entering is the least of our problems. Taylor grabbed her jacket. Let's go. They returned to the Regency Grand that evening. Walked in like they belonged there. Like they were just another couple checking in for a romantic weekend. Nobody looked twice. Taylor led them to the 17th floor. To Ariana's suite. She knocked first. Standard procedure. If someone answered, they'd apologize for the wrong room. Nobody answered. Taylor swiped her key card. The lock clicked open. They stepped inside. The suite was massive. Living room.
Bedroom.
Bathroom with a tub the size of a small pool. Everything decorated in shades of cream and gold that screamed money. Split up, Jackson said. You take the bedroom. I'll take the living room. They searched quickly. Methodically. Taylor checked drawers. The closet. Under the mattress. All the places people thought were clever hiding spots, but were actually the first places investigators looked. Nothing. Jackson checked the couch cushions. The minibar. Behind the artwork on the walls. Nothing. It's not here, Taylor said, frustrated. She must have gotten rid of it. Jackson closed his eyes. Let his wolf senses expand. He could smell Ariana everywhere. Her perfume. Her shampoo. The faint trace of fierce sweat she'd left behind the morning of the murder. But underneath all of that, silver. The sharp, acrid smell of silver. His eyes snapped open. The bathroom. It's in the bathroom. They rushed in. Jackson went straight to the ventilation grate above the shower, pulled it off, and there, wrapped in a hand towel, was the letter opener.
Silver. Engraved.
And on the handle, barely visible, was a symbol. A wolf's head howling at a crescent moon. Nikolai's pack symbol. Got you, Taylor whispered. Jackson pulled out his phone. Took photos. Careful not to touch the weapon with his bare hands. We give this to the police, he said.
Anonymous tip.
Let them find it themselves. What about Nikolai? What about the hunters? Jackson's jaw tightened. I'll deal with them. But first, we get you cleared. They rewrapped the letter opener, put it back exactly where they found it, replaced the grate, and they left the suite like ghosts. But as they stepped into the elevator, Jackson's phone buzzed. A text. From the same unknown number as before. They're coming for you.
Tonight.
Get her somewhere safe. Now. Jackson's blood turned to ice. We need to leave, he said. Right now.
What?
Why? Because Nikolai knows where I live, and he's sending people to take us. Taylor's face went pale. Where do we go? Jackson thought fast. I know someone who might help, but we have to move.
Now.
They ran. Out of the hotel. Into the street. Toward the subway. Behind them, 3 black SUVs pulled up to the hotel's front entrance. Men in tactical gear stepped out.
Armed.
Organized. And they were hunting. Chapter 7. Cornered wolves don't surrender. They attack. Jackson knew this. Had known it since he was old enough to understand what the wolf inside him meant. When you're backed into a corner with no way out, you bare your teeth. You fight. You make them regret ever coming for you. But this wasn't about survival anymore. This was about justice. They spent the night in a motel in Jersey City. The kind with hourly rates and stains on the carpet that you didn't want to think about too hard. Jackson paid cash. Gave a fake name. The clerk didn't care enough to ask questions. Taylor sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the burner phone Jackson had bought from a bodega. Her regular phone was back at her apartment. Turned off. Because phones could be tracked and they couldn't risk leading Nikolai's people straight to them. We can't keep running, she said quietly. Jackson stood by the window, watching the parking lot. I know. Then what do we do? He turned to face her. His eyes were tired. Haunted. But beneath the exhaustion was something harder. Something sharp. We end this, he said. We bring them out into the open. Make them confess. And we make sure the whole world sees it.
How?
Jackson pulled out his phone. The real one. The one he'd been avoiding because using it meant leaving a digital trail. He called Detective Ramirez. She answered on the 3rd ring. This is Ramirez. Detective, this is Jackson Holland. I worked at the Regency Grand. I have information about the Ashford murder. There was a pause. The sound of paper shuffling.
Jackson Holland.
The dishwasher. We've been looking for you. I know. And I know how this looks. But I didn't kill Dominic Ashford. And neither did Taylor Lopez. Then who did? His wife, Ariana. And I can prove it. But I need your help. Another pause. Longer this time. I'm listening, Ramirez said finally. Jackson explained everything. The security footage. The meeting in Central Park. The murder weapon in Ariana's suite. He left out the parts about werewolves and hunters and supernatural conspiracies. Just stuck to the facts a detective could actually use. When he finished, Ramirez was quiet for a long moment. You're asking me to trust you, she said. An undocumented worker who fled the scene of an active investigation. I'm asking you to trust the evidence. Check the footage. Find the weapon. It's all there. And if I do this, if I follow up on your information, what do you want in return? I want you to be at the Regency Grand tomorrow night. 10 p.m. Rooftop garden. And I want you to bring a camera. Why the rooftop? Because Ariana's leaving the country in 48 hours. And the man she's working with is dangerous. Extremely dangerous. If you try to arrest them quietly, people will die. But if we do this publicly, in a space where other people can see, they won't have a choice. They'll have to talk. Ramirez sighed. This is insane. I know, but it's the only way to clear Taylor's name. Another pause. Then, fine. But if this is a setup, if anything happens to my officers, I will hunt you down myself.
Deal.
Jackson hung up. Taylor stared at him. You think she'll actually come? She's a good cop. Overworked. Cynical. But good. She'll at least check the security footage. And once she sees Ariana going into that room at 2 a.m., she'll have to follow up. He sat down next to Taylor on the bed. Now we just need to get Ariana and Nikolai to the rooftop. How do we do that? Jackson pulled out the burner phone, typed out a message to a number he'd memorized but never wanted to use. Nikolai's number. The one that had been burned into his brain the night his pack was slaughtered. We give them what they want, Jackson said. Me. The message was simple. You want me?
Come get me.
Regency Grand. Rooftop garden. 10 p.m. tomorrow. Come alone, or I disappear forever. He hit send. The response came 90 seconds later. You're finally showing some backbone, Alpha. I'll be there. And I'm bringing the widow. She deserves to watch you die. Taylor's face went white. He's going to try to kill you.
Yeah.
Probably. Jackson set down the phone. But he's also arrogant. He thinks I'm weak. Broken. He'll want to make a show of it. Draw it out. And while he's busy gloating, you're going to get everything on camera. Me? You're going to wear a wire.
A camera.
Something small that they won't notice. And you're going to make sure every word they say is recorded. Jackson took her hands. This only works if we have proof. Real proof. Not just footage we stole from a security office. We need them to confess. On camera. With witnesses. Taylor's hands trembled. What if it goes wrong? What if they hurt you? They're going to hurt me regardless. At least this way, it'll mean something. She wanted to argue. Wanted to tell him this was suicide. That there had to be another way. But she looked into his eyes and saw the truth. This was the only way. The next night, they arrived at the Regency Grand at 9:30 p.m. Taylor was wearing a tiny camera clipped to her jacket, the kind journalists used for undercover reporting. Jackson had bought it that morning from an electronics store in Chinatown. It was linked to a cloud server that would automatically upload footage in real time. Even if something happened to them, the evidence would survive. Detective Ramirez was already there, positioned in the stairwell with 3 other officers, armed but out of sight. You're sure about this? She asked Jackson.
No.
But we're doing it anyway. If things go sideways. If things go sideways, don't try to be a hero. These people are dangerous. More dangerous than you understand. Just get Taylor out. Get the footage. And make sure it gets to the DA. Ramirez didn't like it. But she nodded. Jackson and Taylor took the elevator to the rooftop. The rooftop garden was one of the Regency Grand's selling points. A green oasis 20 stories above Manhattan. Trees and planters. Flower beds. String lights creating a warm glow against the night sky. It was beautiful. And it was about to become a crime scene. They waited. 10 p.m. came and went. Then, at 10:07, the rooftop door opened. Ariana stepped out first. She was wearing all black. Designer clothes that probably cost more than Taylor made in 6 months. Her blonde hair pulled back. Her face calm, almost serene. Behind her came Nikolai. He was bigger than Jackson remembered. Broader. His dark hair streaked with gray. His eyes cold and calculating. And behind them, 4 men in tactical gear. Armed with tranquilizer rifles. Not guns. Tranquilizers. Because they wanted Jackson alive. Well, Nikolai said, his accent thick. The prodigal Alpha returns. I thought you'd spend the rest of your miserable life hiding in kitchens and washing dishes. Jackson said nothing. Just stood there.
Calm.
Ready. Ariana's eyes landed on Taylor. She smiled. And you brought your little pet. How sweet. Taylor's jaw clenched. I'm not a pet.
No.
Ariana tilted her head. Then what are you? A hero? A detective? You're nothing. You're a freak maid who got used because you're too stupid to know when someone's lying to your face. Every word was designed to hurt, to cut. And they did. But Taylor didn't flinch. You think anyone will believe you? Ariana continued. A freak maid and an illegal immigrant?
Please.
I'm a grieving widow, a victim, and you're both criminals. Taylor took a breath, found her voice, the one that had been silent for so long. I'm not a freak, she said clearly.
I'm autistic.
And I'm done being ashamed of it. Ariana blinked.
Surprised.
You used me, Taylor continued, her voice getting stronger. You pretended to be my friend. You made me think someone finally saw me as something other than broken. But you were just using me to cover up the fact that you murdered your husband. Prove it. I don't have to. Taylor gestured to the camera on her jacket. You're going to prove it yourself. Ariana's face went white. What? Nikolai moved fast, grabbed Taylor by the throat, and slammed her against the rooftop railing. Give me the camera, he snarled.
Now.
Jackson's vision went red. The wolf surged up, demanding release, demanding blood. But he couldn't shift. Not yet. Not until they had the confession. Let her go, Nikolai, Jackson said.
His voice was deadly calm.
Or what? Nikolai squeezed tighter. Taylor gasped for air. You'll fight me? You're soft, Jackson.
Weak.
You've spent so long pretending to be human that you've forgotten what you really are. I know exactly what I am. Jackson took a step forward. I'm the son of the alpha you murdered, the last of a bloodline you tried to wipe out. And I'm done running from you. Nikolai's eyes gleamed. Then let's see what you've got. He threw Taylor aside. She hit the ground hard,
gasping.
And then Nikolai shifted, bones cracking, for sprouting. Within seconds, a massive black wolf stood on the rooftop. Bigger than Jackson. Older. Scarred from 100 fights. Jackson shifted too. The transformation hurt. It always hurt. Like every bone in his body was breaking and rebuilding itself in real time. But the pain was familiar. Almost welcome. The silver-gray wolf faced the black one. And they lunged. The fight was brutal. Nikolai was vicious. Experienced. He fought dirty, going for the throat, the eyes, the vulnerable spots that would end the fight quickly. But Jackson was younger. Faster. And he had something Nikolai didn't. Something to fight for. They tore into each other. Claws raking. Teeth snapping. Blood spattering across expensive rooftop tiles. Taylor scrambled to her feet. Her throat bruised. Her vision swimming. She saw Ariana reaching for something in her purse. A gun.
Small.
Silver. Probably loaded with silver bullets. She was aiming at Jackson. Taylor didn't think. She just moved. Grabbed the silver fire poker from one of the decorative fire pits. The metal burned her hands. Even as a human, she could feel it, wrong and painful. And she jammed it into Nikolai's hind leg. The black wolf howled. A sound of pure agony. Silver didn't just hurt shifters.
It poisoned them.
Burned from the inside out. Nikolai stumbled.
Fell.
Jackson pinned him down. Jaws around his throat. One move, and it would be over. Stop. Ariana's voice rang out.
Shrill. Desperate.
She was pointing the gun at Taylor now. Let him go, or I shoot her. Jackson's wolf eyes met Taylor's. She shook her head slightly.
Don't.
It's okay. But it wasn't okay. Because Ariana's hand was shaking. And scared people with guns made mistakes. You killed him, Taylor said. Her voice steady despite the gun pointed at her chest. You killed Dominic. And you framed me for it. He deserved it, Ariana spat. You have no idea what he was. What he did to me. Then tell me. And maybe it was the adrenaline. Maybe it was the fear. Maybe it was the desperate need to make someone understand. But Ariana started talking. He beat me, she said. Her voice cracking. For 3 years. Every time I didn't smile right or said the wrong thing or looked at another man. He beat me. And nobody cared. Because I was just the trophy wife. The pretty blonde who married for money. So you killed him, Taylor said quietly. I tried to leave. He said he'd hunt me down. That his family would make sure I disappeared. Ariana's eyes were wild now. I was born into this. My father was a hunter. My mother was a wolf he kept locked in his basement like an animal. I'm not who?
Mun.
I'm not Wolf. I'm nothing. And I'm tired of being nothing. So, you made a deal with Nikolai. He promised me a new life. New identity. Freedom. All I had to do was kill Dominic and frame someone expendable. Ariana looked at Taylor. That was supposed to be you. The weird maid nobody would miss. But people do miss me, Taylor said. Jackson misses me. Detective Ramirez, who's listening to every word you're saying right now. She's been fighting for me. You're wrong. I'm not expendable. Ariana's face crumbled. Neither am I. The gun wavered. And then police stormed the rooftop. 6 officers. Led by Detective Ramirez. Weapons drawn. Drop the gun, Ramirez shouted. Now. Ariana looked around. At the cops. At Nikolai, still pinned under Jackson's wolf form. At Taylor, bruised and bleeding but still standing. She dropped the gun. And fell to her knees. I killed him, she sobbed. I killed Dominic. And I do it again. Ramirez's officers moved in. Cuffed her. Read her rights. Jackson released Nikolai. Shifted back to human form. His body was covered in cuts and bruises. Blood dripping from a gash above his eye. Taylor ran to him. Threw her arms around him despite the blood and the pain, and the fact that they were surrounded by police officers who just watched a man turn into a wolf. You saved me, Jackson whispered. His voice hoarse. Again. Taylor was crying. You made me believe I was worth saving. They held each other while the police secured the scene. While paramedics arrived to treat their injuries. While Nikolai was loaded into an armored transport vehicle designed for dangerous criminals. Detective Ramirez approached them slowly.
So, she said.
Werewolves are real. Jackson tensed. Ready to run. Relax, Ramirez said. I'm not going to report it. Mostly because nobody would believe me. Also because you just helped me close a murder case and take down what appears to be an international trafficking ring.
She paused.
But you're going to owe me. Big time. What do you want? Jackson asked warily. Right now? I want you both to go to the hospital.
Get checked out.
Give your statements. And then I want you to disappear for a while. Let this blow over. Ramirez's expression softened slightly. You did good, kid. Both of you. Against all odds. Taylor wiped her eyes. What's going to happen to Ariana? Murder 1. Conspiracy. She'll spend the rest of her life in prison. Ramirez looked at Jackson. What about him? Nikolai? There are others like him. His organization. They traffic in supernatural beings. Sell them to collectors. Laboratories. People who want to experiment. Jackson's jaw clenched. He needs to go somewhere he can't hurt anyone ever again. I'll make sure of it. They watched as Ariana was led away in handcuffs. Still crying. Still insisting she'd had no choice. Maybe she hadn't. Maybe she'd been a victim too, just one who'd turned her pain into someone else's nightmare. But that didn't excuse what she'd done. Taylor leaned into Jackson's side.
Exhausted. Hurting.
But alive. Is it over? She whispered. Jackson pressed a kiss to the top of her head. Yeah, it's over. But even as he said it, one question lingered in the air between them. A question that would follow them long after the cameras stopped rolling and the police left and the headlines faded. Could a human and a wolf ever truly build a life together? Or were they doomed from the start? Chapter 8. Happy endings aren't perfect. They're messy, complicated, full of scars that don't quite heal and questions that don't have clean answers. But they're real. And sometimes that's enough. The charges against Taylor Lopez were dropped on a Tuesday morning. District attorneys stood in front of a dozen reporters and cameras, looking tired but satisfied, and announced that new evidence had come to light. security footage, a confession, physical evidence linking Ariana Ashford and Nikolai Volkov to the murder of Dominic Ashford. Taylor Lopez was innocent. The media that had torn her apart weeks earlier suddenly wanted to make her a hero, called her brave, resilient, a victim of a system that had failed her. Taylor didn't do any interviews. She just went home, removed the ankle monitor, and slept for 14 hours straight. When she woke up, Jackson was sitting in her kitchen, making coffee. "You stayed," she said, her voice rough from sleep. "Where else would I go?" He handed her a mug. Black. 2 sugars. Exactly how she liked it. She took the coffee, sat across from him at her tiny table. "What happens now?" she asked.
Now.
Jackson smiled. It was tired, but real. "Now we figure out how to live." It wasn't that simple, of course. Jackson's immigration status was still a disaster. Technically, he was here illegally. Technically, ICE could pick him up any day and deport him back to a country where hunters were still looking for him. But Patricia Chen, Taylor's lawyer, had connections. She knew people who specialized in asylum cases. People who understood that sometimes the law needed to bend a little to accommodate reality. "You helped solve a murder," Patricia explained over coffee in her cluttered office. "You stopped a human trafficking operation. And you did it all while being hunted yourself. That's a pretty compelling case for asylum." "Even though I'm—" Jackson hesitated. Couldn't quite say it out loud in a room that might be bugged. "Even though you're different," Patricia said carefully.
Yes.
"The asylum system exists for people fleeing persecution. And what happened to your family in Colombia? That's persecution. We just have to frame it the right way." Taylor squeezed Jackson's hand under the table. "Will it work?"
No guarantees.
"But I've seen worse cases get approved." Patricia pulled out a stack of forms. "Start filling these out. And Jackson? Get your sister's contact information. We're going to need her testimony." Valentina arrived in New York 3 months later. She was 21 now, finishing her nursing degree in Bogota. She'd been living with their mother's sister since the attack on the village, safe, but constantly looking over her shoulder. When she stepped off the plane at JFK, Jackson was waiting. He'd been terrified she wouldn't recognize him, that 9 years would have changed him too much, that she'd see a stranger instead of her brother. But the moment their eyes met across the arrival's gate, Valentina dropped her bags and ran. They held each other in the middle of the terminal, both of them crying. Both of them whole for the first time in nearly a decade. "You're here," Jackson whispered into her hair. "You're really here." "You saved me," Valentina said. Her English was good but accented. "All those years. All that money you sent. You kept me alive. We kept each other alive." Taylor stood a few feet away, giving them space. But Valentina pulled back and looked at her. "You're Taylor," she said. Taylor blinked. "How did you?" "Jackson talks about you constantly. In every email. Every phone call. Taylor did this. Taylor said that. Taylor is amazing." Valentina grinned. "I was starting to think you were imaginary." Taylor's face flushed. "I'm very real."
Good.
"Because my brother needs someone real." Valentina pulled Taylor into a hug. "Thank you. For saving him. For seeing him." Taylor hugged her back. "He saved me first." They moved into a bigger apartment in Astoria. 2 bedrooms. A kitchen with enough space to actually cook. Windows that let in real sunlight instead of the gray half-light of Taylor's old studio. Valentina took the smaller bedroom, decorated it with photos of their family, their mother, their father, the village that no longer existed. "I don't want to forget," she told Jackson one night, "even though it hurts to remember." "We won't forget," Jackson promised. "But we get to build something new too." Taylor quit the Regency Grand. She'd thought about going back, finishing out her notice, doing things the right way. But when she walked past the building, her chest got tight. Her hands started shaking. The memories were too fresh, too raw. So she didn't go back. Instead, she started something new. Clean Slate Services, a cleaning company specifically designed to employ neurodivergent workers. People who needed structure. Routine. Employers who understood that different didn't mean less. She hired 3 people in the first month. All of them had stories like hers. All of them had been fired from other jobs for being too slow, or too particular, or too weird. With Taylor, they were just right. She created systems,
Checklists.
color-coded schedules, sensory-friendly uniforms, noise-canceling headphones for people who needed them, fidget tools for people who stymied. And she paid them well, better than minimum wage, with benefits. "You're going to go bankrupt," one of her first clients said. A wealthy woman on the Upper East Side who'd hired Clean Slate on a trial basis. "Maybe," Taylor said, "but I'd rather go bankrupt doing something that matters than get rich exploiting people." The client blinked, then smiled. "You know what? I'm going to recommend you to all my friends." Word spread. Clean Slate services grew. Slowly at first, then faster. Within 6 months, Taylor had a waiting list of clients and a team of 12 employees. She'd found her purpose, and it felt like flying. Jackson got his asylum approval on a Thursday afternoon. The letter came in the mail. Official government letterhead. Dense legal language that took Patricia 10 minutes to translate. But the important part was clear. Jackson Holland was granted asylum in the United States.
He could stay.
Legally. Without fear of deportation. He stared at the letter for a long time. "It's real?" he asked Patricia. "It's real. You're safe. Your sister's safe. You can work legally. Apply for a green card in a year. Citizenship in 5. Jackson's hands shook. "I don't know what to say." "Say, thank you. And then go live your life." He went home and told Taylor.
She cried. He cried.
They held each other in their small kitchen and let themselves feel something they hadn't felt in a very long time. Relief. Jackson got a job at a restaurant in Astoria. Not as a dishwasher, as a cook. The owner was a 60-year-old Greek man named Stavros, who'd immigrated to America 40 years earlier. He took one bite of Jackson's empanadas and hired him on the spot. "You cook like someone who understands food," Stavros said. "Not just recipes."
Food.
That's rare. Jackson worked the line, learned Greek techniques alongside his Colombian ones, experimented with fusion dishes that made Stavros laugh and order seconds. "You should open your own place someday," Stavros said one night after service. "Maybe," Jackson said, "someday." But right now, he was content with this. A steady paycheck. A boss who respected him. A kitchen that smelled like olive oil and oregano and home. 6 months after the rooftop. 6 months after everything fell apart and came back together in a completely different shape. Taylor stood in the kitchen of their Astoria apartment, arranging flowers in a vase. Sunflowers. Her favorite. She bought them every week from the bodega on the corner. The owner always saved the best ones for her. She arranged them by height. Smallest to tallest. Leaves facing the same direction. It still brought her peace. The precision. The order. But now, it wasn't about controlling a chaotic world. It was about creating beauty in a world that finally had room for her. Jackson was at the stove, making empanadas. The recipe his mother had taught him when he was 8 years old. Beef and olives and a hint of cumin. Music played from a cheap Bluetooth speaker on the counter. Something acoustic and Spanish that Valentina had put on before leaving for her evening shift at the hospital. She was working as a nurse's aide now, studying for her American licensing exams. Building a life. They were all building lives. Jackson glanced over at Taylor. Saw her humming to herself while she adjusted a sunflower by half an inch. "Dance with me," he said suddenly. Taylor looked up. "What? Dance with me?" He wiped his hands on a dish towel, crossed the kitchen, extended his hand. "I don't really dance," Taylor said. "I'm not good at it. Neither am I. But I don't care." She took his hand. They swayed in the kitchen. Clumsy. Offbeat. His hand on her waist. Her head on his shoulder. It wasn't graceful. It wasn't perfect. But it was theirs. "I love you," Jackson whispered into her hair. Taylor's breath hitched. "You do?"
Yeah.
I do. I love that you count things. I love that you hum when you're focused. I love that you see the world differently than everyone else. I love you exactly as you are. Taylor pulled back just enough to look at him. I love you too. Even though you're a werewolf who sheds on the furniture and eats an alarming amount of red meat. Jackson laughed. Actually laughed. We're quite a pair. Yeah, we are.
They kissed.
Soft and slow and full of promise. Outside, the city hummed. Sirens and car horns and a million people living their lives. But inside the small apartment in Queens, two people who'd been told they were too different, too broken, too wrong. They were finally home. Taylor Lopez learned that being different isn't a flaw. It's a superpower. The things that made her weird to other people, the obsessive attention to detail, the need for routine, the way she saw patterns others missed, those were the things that made her brilliant. Made her a survivor. Made her someone who could build something beautiful out of chaos. And Jackson Holland learned that home isn't a place. It's a person. He'd spent 9 years running, hiding, trying to stay one step ahead of the people who wanted him dead. But home wasn't Columbia, wasn't his village, wasn't even safety. Home was Taylor. Her laugh. Her terrible jokes. The way she left post-it notes around the apartment with little reminders and words of encouragement. Home was Valentina, his sister, his blood. The last piece of his family who'd survived. Home was this tiny apartment with mismatched furniture and a kitchen that smelled like empanadas and flowers. Home was built, not found. Two broken people found each other in the chaos. In a hotel where one was invisible and the other was hiding. Where murder and conspiracy and ancient supernatural grudges collided with mental health struggles and immigration trauma and the simple human need to be seen. And they built something unbreakable. Not perfect. Not easy. Not the kind of love story that gets told in fairy tales. But real. Messy and complicated and worth fighting for. That's not just a love story. That's a revolution. Because every time someone who's been told they're too different decides they're exactly right. Every time someone who's been told to hide chooses to be seen. Every time two people who shouldn't work on paper decide to build something real anyway. That's a revolution. And Taylor and Jackson? They were just getting started.
So,
if this story moved you, if you felt something in Taylor's struggle to be seen, or Jackson's fight to survive, or the way two impossible people found each other and refused to let go, drop a comment below right now and tell us, what country are you watching from? Seriously, we want to know. Are you listening in New York? London? Dallas? California? Tokyo? Some small town in the middle of nowhere where you thought nobody understood what it felt like to be different? Tell us, because you're not alone, and your story matters too. And here's the real question. Are you Team Taylor or Team Jackson? Who did you connect with more? The woman who learned to love her differences? Or the wolf who learned that running wasn't the same as living? Comment below. We read every single one. And listen, if you loved this werewolf romance, if you stayed with us for 2 full hours and felt something real, why haven't you subscribed to Gracie Werewolf Story Bank yet? What's stopping you? Is it the algorithm? The fact that you're watching on someone else's account? Or are you just one of those people who watches 100 videos without ever hitting subscribe? We're calling you out. Lovingly. But we're calling you out. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next story. And share this video with someone who needs to hear that being different isn't a death sentence. It's a superpower. Share it with your neurodivergent friends, your immigrant friends, your friends who feel invisible, your friends who are running from something and don't know how to stop. Share it with someone who needs to remember that love, real love, isn't about being perfect. It's about being brave enough to be yourself. Thanks for sticking with us for 2 full hours. Seriously, you're the real MVPs. We'll see you in the next one. Until then, remember, home isn't a place. It's a person. And sometimes, it's the person you least expect. Stay different.
stay brave. Stay you.
This is Gracie Werewolf Story Bank, signing off.